Montana. Listen, there's even magic in the sound of the word. Montana. Here is a natural province where mountain and river, forest and field, sunlight and shadow collide in a creation wild as an eagle's heartbeat, still as a holy mind. Montana. A place where one can feel the pulse of the earth and of the seasons, and live a lifestyle that's timeless and genuine and free. In recent years, more and more people from outside Montana have been drawn to this very special place. They have invested in the Montana landscape. A venture with a new type of return. Not only have they made a wise investment in a non-renewable resource, they have purchased large pieces of Eden. This landscape is guilty of deception, a place that appears to have an innocence thought to be found only in the forgotten corners of the earth. But this Eden is no accident. It's the product of conservation, not preservation. The health of this land has been maintained through exercise, by harvest and renewal. Many who have purchased these large tracts of private land have found that owning a piece of Eden is far more complex and challenging than they ever imagined. Roger Lang.
I started a company, ran it, took it public. It was a high-tech company. I'm a high-tech Silicon Valley guy. But you put me in a ranch environment, and I was an absolute novice. I grew up in California where environmentalism is sort of anti-hunting, cattle are bad. I had an awakening when I moved up here. That really surprised me because boy, was I off in terms of my sort of book-led education.
One thing new landowners soon discover is that nature doesn't recognize boundaries on a deed. Elk move across the land according to ancient migration patterns. Rivers and streams flow from the highlands toward the sea. Trout move upstream to spawn. Just as no one can own the wind, no one owns the rivers or wildlife. Chase Hibbard.
One of the lessons that I have learned, and it's taken a family, I think, several generations to learn, is that Mother Nature's the boss. And you may not be able to do everything that you think you're going to be able to do. You may not be able to have the control that you're used to having. It's a humbling experience at times. There are so many variables, and you learn that nature is more powerful and is bigger than we are, and there's very little we can do about it. You'll learn that you need to manage within those parameters. Not to say you can't, head in a certain direction, but patience is probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned here, and humility. Don't be impatient and be prepared to be humbled.
Managing wildlife on private land can be a huge challenge, especially managing large ungulates, particularly elk. Elk are smart, adaptive creatures. By day, they are quick to find de facto refuge, and by night, they move to neighboring ranches to feed. Maynard Smith.
The elk, don't know any boundaries. I mean, they go where they want to go. And whereas the livestock are held by fence, the elk are going to come into land that has been grazed because it freshens up the feed for them. But the cattle take the old feed down, and then the elk are able to come in for the fresh feed later on. Everybody likes, that I know, likes to see wildlife, but when you get an overabundance of them, and you're dependent on feed to run your livestock operation, it makes it pretty tough to do that.
One of the primary tools for managing wildlife populations and reducing crop damage on private land has been to allow access to hunters. Since some landowners value their privacy above all other values, they are reluctant to allow hunters on their property. But ranchers who have closed off their ranch to hunters have not only risked suffering crop damage, but have bucked a rich tradition.
In my experience, the first thing that happens is a padlock goes on the gate. I can understand why they feel that way when they come here. It's a major expenditure. They may come from a place where you have to protect your property rights, you have to protect the safety of your person. We're not there yet in this state. Hunting can be used as a tool to help you manage that wildlife, which eventually you're going to have to do. There'll be conflict one way or another, and so hunters can be helpful in management and in moving wildlife away from where you don't want it and encouraging them to be in places where you may want them.
Block management is a cooperative effort between the state and landowners designed to facilitate hunting on private and isolated public lands. Each agreement is tailored to meet individual needs. Landowners keep control of their property while the program provides benefits to offset any impact.
We've been in the block management program since it started, and it's been a great thing for us. We have several different places spread out about 30 miles, and each place has a different system. Say if you don't want to hunt a certain type of animal, if you don't want it hunted on your place, you can say, well, let's just do cow elk on this place, and maybe not something in another place. So it's really a great system. They patrol it for you if you want it patrolled, to be sure that people aren't driving all over the place in different areas where they shouldn't be. I know that the people that hunt on our land appreciate it very much.
We've got a long and rich heritage of sharing our ranches with the community. There's been, a very important relationship that is built up over time with our communities, with the suppliers we do business with the people that live in the nearby towns, with the people that come out and fight our fires when we have a problem. We're still a big community, and there are a lot of people out there that care just as deeply or more deeply about this landscape than many of us do who own it. And when they come here, they treat it in that fashion, and it's a very rewarding thing for them, and it's a rewarding thing for us to see people get that much enjoyment out of these ranches. So my advice would be to don't put that padlock on the gate, make some friends in the community, be sensitive to the values that existed before you came, and be supportive of those values instead of locking them out.
When you purchase large tracts of Montana land, you are purchasing more than flora and fauna. You're becoming a player in a long and powerful human drama. If a rancher wanted to stay in business, he had to take care of his land. And this common effort has brought ranchers together in a close and caring community. When you purchase Montana ranch land, you are becoming a part of this rich tradition. And the challenge is keeping the tradition alive and preserving the values that led you to Montana in the first place. For thousands of years, the Montana landscape has been carpeted by vast pastures of grass. Once it nourished the great herds of buffalo that roamed the west. When cattlemen came and established ranches, the grass was the land's most valuable resource. If a ranch were to survive and prosper, it was essential to preserve the health of the grass.
We've been in a rest rotation system for about the last 30 years on this ranch. And rest rotation is simply a 3-pasture system that you save one pasture, don't use it at all in the year. The other pasture you use early in the spring, and the third pasture you use late in the year. And this way you have 2 growing seasons for your forage to replenish itself, replenish its root system. It gives you a little security and reserve of feed. There's a little more feed in the spring when you have a pasture that has been rested the previous year, and then you go into it early in the spring, you have last year's feed there.
Today there is an additional threat to the health of the land: the invasion of aggressive, non-native, noxious weeds.
Weeds are a major problem here. They've come in, and it's really important, that we all take care of them. And try to eradicate them. And I think the neighbors work together in that way. And when you're across the fence from somebody, if he doesn't take care of his weeds, you're going to have them.
Weeds are a huge threat in the state, and I think that the sooner that new landowners realize the threat that they are and take a proactive management stance towards weeds, the better off they will be, and the better off the state, the better off the wildlife, the better off we will be as a community in Montana.
Everybody has a common denominator there, saying we have to take care of the land and the grasses and that which grows on the land. The weeds undermine that. You can't play God on a ranch, but what you can do is react to what the land is telling you. I think when you come in as an outsider, the most important thing is to admit what you are and admit what you aren't. I'm not a rancher by background, and I'm learning how to be a rancher from my friends here in the community.
We have a community here that in this state that has different values than a lot of other places around the country. And I think that a sensitivity to those community needs and those community values is of great importance. If I had some advice, it would be to identify the needs of the community and assimilate into that community fabric that's part of our heritage in this state, and become part of that community in a contributing way.
All I needed to do was come in and admit the fact that I was a high-tech guy and not a ranch guy, help me how to be a ranch guy, and they opened up their hearts and notebooks and shared with me what I needed to know to run this place. Without collaboration and a sense of community, you know, you're just a patch on a quilt and you don't hang with the rest.
Your neighbors are so important to ranchers. I mean, we really couldn't operate without good neighbors.
This ranch defines who we are as people. It defines who we are as a family. This is not just a chunk of dirt. This has got its own personality. We all appreciate it, we all love it, and we're going to do everything we can to protect it into the future.
Few places on Earth offer the aesthetic, lifestyle, and economic values as do investments in the Montana landscape. Very few people ever find themselves in the position to truly make a contribution to the health of the land, the continuation of tradition, and the perpetuation of a culture. Owning a large tract of the Montana landscape can bring unprecedented returns, a rare opportunity to leave a lasting legacy.